Let's see if third luck is the charm, because otherwise I may just throw this machine against the wall. Okay, invitation sent to Nelli. So now we will just wait for her to join very shortly. Yay, okay. And let's see. Right, I've sent the invitation now, so hopefully it should appear on your screen. Is it telling you you have an invitation right at the bottom? Or if not, does it allow you to press like the camera symbol so you can join? Because I keep on pressing the invite button. Is it, can you see the little icon at the bottom? There should be like a camera with a plus. If you press that, then it will allow you to accept the request. Does that work? And I've sent it again. Ah,
Hi
there we
there.
go.
So it doesn't work on my computer for some reason. So
That's okay.
I just
My
gonna
phone was having a
fix
funny
my
moment as well, so I think Instagram was just like, nope.
technology.
I know, I know. It's one of those things we can't live without it, but it
But
doesn't really like it.
let me just fix my little holder.
That,
Don't have to
that's
hold
right.
the whole time. Okay, just 1 second. Now it's a bit tiny. Okay, so I'm here. Thank you.
You're comfortable and happy?
Hmm?
Are you comfortable now and happy with the setup?
Kind of. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Good.
Awesome. Well, that's all we need. Everything else is optional, like my mom says, like when you travel. As long as you have your passport, if you forget everything else, well.
True. That is.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone that's joining us already so far. I'll do a very brief introduction as to what we're doing here today, and then I'll let Nelly present herself because, oh my God, she's amazing, and I'm so happy that she's talking here with me because I've been a big fan of hers for a really long time. So this is honestly a huge moment for me. But for those of you who may not know what we're doing here, I'm Lily. I'm the CEO at Travolution Tours, and we're a company that specializes in making tour guiding affordable and accessible to everyone. And as part of that accessibility and affordability, we really embrace sustainability. And part of that is for us to allow the rest of the world to understand what a tour guide actually does, which is, a very mysticized world. I think everyone thinks tour guides have like a lovely life and everything is sunshine and rainbows, but there is a lot of work behind us, right? So it's also an opportunity for you guys to know what we do and why tour guiding is a lovely profession that, more people should have access to. And today, as one of our guests, we have Nelly. And Nelly is awesome. And I could probably tell you all sorts of things about her, but I always like it when people introduce themselves. So Nelly, please tell everyone that may not know you who you are and everything that you want to say.
Lily, thank you for inviting me. First of all, you are sweet and kind as always. I'm happy to be here. So my name is Nelli. I'm a Hungarian. So, well, I was born in Hungary and raised in Austria and Hungary, and lived my grown-up life actually abroad, countries on 3 continents. And a few years ago, I decided to move back to my motherland. And since I'm a passionate foodie and traveler, this is why I founded my company, Nellicious Travels. I was very creative. Nelly, delicious food and travels. So I specialized on culinary experiences, so food tours, food tasting tours, sweet tasting tours, wine tours, and private tours, and online cooking experiences. So I love to share my passion with similar-minded people and everybody who actually wants to learn about Hungary, because I believe that through food, you learn a lot about the nation's history, culture, mentality, and traditions.
100%. And I couldn't agree more, but I'm a food historian. So what am I going to say otherwise? Food is, again, I think this was one of the reasons why when I met you over Instagram, I connected immediately with you, because I was like, she gets me. I live in a perpetual state of hunger. My mom always says that as long as I'm awake, I only think of eating and reading books, which is not a lie, to be honest. It's a great way of being, in my opinion. So, and as soon as I started following your account, I was like, yeah, that's exactly it. When people come together around the table and they start eating and whatnot, I think it just creates a beautiful moment, because food is an international language. Like, everyone has to eat. We all have to. So it's that beautiful moment when you can set aside your differences and just have a meal and connect with people. But like you said, when you eat things from somewhere else, then you understand those people too, because at the end of the day, we are what we eat in a way. So yeah, these experiences fascinate me, and I'm so excited and happy for anything that you post, because I'm always like, yes, where are we going today? What are we doing? I want to know absolutely everything. But if I could ask you a question, I know, like you said, that you've lived in Austria, you've lived in Hungary, and you've gone kind of like all over the place. So what were you doing before you decided to do this? Because I think your background was very different, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm an economist, and I always worked in business. So in marketing, in event organization, well, which is a bit kind of similar to what I'm doing now. Worked in finance for a very long time. And well, I did study tourism. So one of my majors was tourism catering and hotel management. But I never really worked in that field. So, but since I always traveled, and wherever I traveled, and I lived in many countries, I always try to taste local food, cook it myself. And whenever my friends visited me from all over the world, I showed them the country I lived through food again. And this is what brought the idea. Actually, a few friends of mine asked me, why don't you do this? And then I thought, well, yeah, that's something, your passion, it can be your job as well.
For sure. I mean, I think it's wonderful when, people who may have been doing something else, they really find their true passion, like you're saying, and suddenly it's something that really allows you to be yourself, I think, particularly doing something as creative as cooking, right? Or talking about food. Because I've always said cooking is a little bit of science and a little bit of art, in my opinion, because the ingredients, have chemical reactions, so you need to understand that. But I mean, I don't know, some people may disagree with me, but I'm not the kind of person that likes following like a recipe very strictly. I quite like thinking, ooh, I'm gonna open a cupboard and see what happens.
Yeah.
So, that's how I think of it, as being a creative form as well as a science sort of type of activity. So it's great that it allows you to actually do something that you're so passionate about, and that allows you to connect with all of those other people. And on that note, I obviously know that you run these cooking sessions online with a lot of people. So can you tell everyone else a bit more about what do you do during these sessions, and where do people join, and why do people join these sessions? Because sometimes I think, I don't know, I experience a lot of people like from abroad wanting to do these sessions, but I think as well, more and more local people are sort of developing an interest to learning how to do, things that perhaps they've forgotten about. So tell us about these cooking sessions.
Okay, so I absolutely agree with what you said, and I have to say we in Hungary have a bit of different traditions and heritage about cooking because most of people, at least my generation, we grew up with our, well, both of our parents worked, but when they were at home, my mom always cooked. And me and my sister stood in the kitchen with her and tried to help her from when we were really little. And at one point, we could do some parts of the Sunday lunch ourselves, and then we could do more and more. So we automatically learned how to cook. And going out to restaurants in Hungary had a completely different meaning than probably more west from here, because that's very common in the Western European countries or in the Western countries, that going out for lunch or dinner, that's very normal. For us, that was very special. So if we went out to a restaurant, we celebrated something. It was either a big birthday or an anniversary or kind of a degree what we received. So it was very special for us. And on the other hand, as well, when we cook, we know exactly what's in the food. And I appreciate that because sometimes you go to a store and just want to grab something, but in last minute you just turn it around and there's a list of ingredients where you just go, well, sorry, this is supposed to be a cooked ham. Why are things in it? And I always think when I cook, I know exactly what's in it and where I bought the ingredients as well. I love farmers markets. So that's always for me, let's just check it out. I love seasonal ingredients. And I think your body kind of works with it a lot better than if you have a watermelon in the winter. You don't even crave it, but your body can't really handle it either. So in my cooking sessions, what I do, people join me from all over the world. Why I love to do it? Because even people who toured with me in Budapest or in Hungary, they sometimes just think, oh, we had such a nice dish here and here. Let's just call Nelly and make a cooking session with her. We want to recook it. And some people just say, oh, Hungary. I actually don't really know anything or a lot about Hungary. Let's just cook something Hungarian. Especially, we can't travel now because of the pandemic, because of money, because of not having enough holidays. And then they say, okay, let's do this cooking session. And then they book me to a certain time, certain date. It's normally a private group. I had sessions where there were 5 households in different states of the US.
Wow.
And then it's family, parents, then the children, and maybe the cousins. And then they join in. And before, sorry, I have to go back a bit, because before the cooking session, I, of course, send them a list of ingredients so they can go shopping and find everything. I even know lists of stores where to buy certain Hungarian produce.
Wow.
They join into the video, and we start really, it doesn't matter if you can cook or you cannot cook. We start from peeling, cutting, chopping, step by step. They cook along with me. And through this activity, we talk a lot about everything, a lot about Hungarian history, Hungarian food, and everything what's actually current situations, everything. And then while we are talking and preparing the meal, we start cooking, and at the end, first of all, they have a wonderful activity together. Maybe they haven't seen each other for a while, and then they are together. And then at the end, they have a delicious food on their table they can eat. And they enjoy it. I love to do it. And I think that brings you closer, that brings people closer.
For sure. You know, I was thinking of you a lot just at the beginning of this week, because I did something very similar for my Hey Go Voyagers. I did a session where we made a quesada, which is a traditional dish from where I come from in Spain. And to me, I always make that when I'm feeling a bit like homesick.
Yeah.
It's one of the few things I can recreate because, you know, having access to the right ingredients is so important. You can't always do things faithfully, but quesada is one of the very few things that I can sort of make at home easily. And because not a lot of people know about Cantabria, like, you know, Hungary and whatnot, I was like, well, it'd be a good idea if I taught them how to do this, which then they can share with their families and then talk a bit more about that. And it was, you know, exactly just like how you said. We were literally just cooking from scratch. I made it so very easy. So I was like, literally, guys, doesn't matter if you've never cooked anything in your life. We're going to do this so easy that anyone could do it. And in fact, that's exactly like what you were saying, how I remember my parents taught me to cook. And everything you were saying reminds me very much of how I think things used to be in Spain. I think, you know, people used to gather around the kitchen. You would have whole conversations, arguments, anything around the kitchen because it was, you know, the living space. So I 100%, you know, understand this and see where they're coming from. And like you said, you know, what can be more special and amazing than to have your family scattered across different states and come together, cook a wonderful meal together. And even though you're not together, you have the same result on your table, right?
Yeah.
So at least this is a moment of connection, which, you know, I think is wonderful. So, you know, I love this idea of your cooking sessions, and I know that they are really popular. So, you know, well done you. You've obviously done amazingly. And on that front, and knowing how popular they are, I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about these awards that you've been nominated to and that actually have won. Because in case you didn't know, this woman is absolutely amazing and she's constantly being celebrated in the community. So can you tell us a little bit more about this, please?
You make me blush now, Lily. So, thank you. Yeah, I just won from the Travel and Hospitality Award in culinary experiences in Hungary. So that contains actually the online cooking sessions as well, and also my food tours. And I'm very proud of it because, as you said, there are a lot of people offering this kind of things. Sometimes they are professional chefs as well. And it's, of course, it's nice to have it. And they kind of choose the people according to their reviews. And most of my reviews, I work with different platforms as well. But of course, I'm trying to raise the reviews on my TripAdvisor site. And according to that, they make a research, and then they kind of, the jury picks the winner. And this is what I won this year. Yeah, so yeah.
That's, you know, I wanted you to explain that because I had done a little bit of research, so I sort of knew how it happened, but I wanted everyone else to know, you know, when you're going head to head with literally things like chefs and, you know, people who do this for a living, like, it is even more amazing because I'm not suggesting that, you know, your cooking is lesser than a chef, but one would think, oh, a chef would really know how to do this well, deliver it well, and whatever. But the fact that your reviews are so amazing, you know, people that are coming to your sessions obviously are having such a great time that no chef can compare. So that's mind blowing, right? That's like, yay.
I think a big difference is between, you see, chefs these days are recreating dishes. And I'm still into that traditional cooking, like how grandma made the recipe. Like last week, I cooked something which my grandma used to cook. So it's something delicious for me and my dad because it was his mom. And these kind of things you hardly get in a restaurant or hardly get in a Michelin place or from a Michelin cook. And I think that people do appreciate that because, as I noticed, I just had an interview with I'm showing off now, with the report National Geographic. So it's gonna get published in the next few months in the UK about Budapest's food scene. And I told him as well that I actually think that these really traditional restaurants are kind of disappearing from the market because everybody recreates something, and when they serve it, it tastes wonderful. But you would not, my grandparents would never recognize it that, oh, this is this dish.
Yeah.
Nice.
If you say so. Yeah.
It is wonderful, absolutely. But yeah, so I think it should be a nice mix.
Yeah. No, and I think, particularly when we're talking about traditional food, there is something, and I think it comes down to that thing about not being an exact science that people probably can relate to, because like you said, when you're cooking at home, you're doing it with that idea in mind that it's for your family, it's for you, it's for comfort, it's for whatever. So it has almost like a different. I think it does have a different taste. Like, I know it's purely psychological. I'm sure it is, but it does have a different feeling and a different everything to it. So I can only imagine that for people who are trying to do that at home and sort of asking you to teach them how to do that is very much like perhaps recreating some of those experiences that they may have had with their parents, with their grandparents, whatever, which you're not gonna get from, a chef or whatever. You would feel more like you're in class and everything is strict. But the fact that you can bring those things and it's so humane and you're giving them the context of history and Hungary itself as a country and how it developed, all of that adds to the experience. So, this is why I really wanted to talk about it, because it's not just like a cooking class. It is an experience for sure. So it's wonderful. I can carry on talking about this, but no, it is amazing, and I'm just so happy for you and that you're getting this recognition, because I think everyone that follows you or that knows you sees this passion in you, and we know how seriously you take it. So it's nice that then the rest of the world is going to be able to appreciate this. And who knows, maybe you will have international groups now where people from all over will like collide into one screen, just sort of trying to get your secret Hungarian recipes.
Yeah. Oh.
It would be amazing, for sure. So now that we've talked about the cooking bits, could you tell us a bit more about the food tours? Because I love that kind of stuff. I've done a few myself, but I know you have a very special way of doing them. So tell us, what is a food tour like with you in Budapest, and why is Budapest such a good place to do this? Because the food scene in Budapest is quite interesting, I think.
Yeah, the food scene is enormous in Budapest, definitely. Well, let me say so. So you never stay hungry in Hungary, and definitely not in Budapest. And it is like there are Budapest is really a city of food and drinks, and of course, and a lot of culture and architecture and everything. But you can combine it. So in my food tours, when people come for a few days to Budapest, well, I have to say, people still only come for 2-3 days. Some, what I really appreciate, when they come for 5 days or a whole week, then I say, yes, there is so much to discover here that you can spend weeks here and still discover something new. But on my food tours, I like to take my guests, first of all, to a local market. To a local market where we locals shop, mainly local and seasonal produce. And I think going through a local market, you learn the most about Hungarian cuisine. I have to say, through our history, our cuisine is, of course, influenced. So through our history, we eat what we eat till today. And Hungarian cuisine is absolutely meat and dough dominated. Well, Hungary is one of the oldest countries as Hungarian kingdom and Hungarian democracy on the continent. So we're over 1,000 years old as Hungarian, well, kingdom, now democracy. And when my ancestors came in here, they used to live a nomadic lifestyle. And that was the time of the Great Migration in the 8th, 9th century again. I mean, every few centuries there is a migration. So people from the east were coming west, from the south were coming north, and my people came from the east towards the Carpathian Basin. This is where we are geographically located. And they actually needed a new place to stay and wanted to give up their nomadic lifestyle. And what they did, they found here a lot of water and very good soil. So it was obvious to do what farming and agriculture. And this is what kind of, I mean, in order to do physical work, you need certain food. You need protein and you need carbs. And this is how our cuisine actually developed. Meat, 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 dough, dough, dough. And we're very creative with dough. We cook it, we boil it, we fry it, we grill it. We do everything with that. And everything tastes different. And from this beginning, of course, our cuisine was influenced by the Turks, the Ottomans, staying here for 150 years. Then we were part of the Austro-Hungarian monarchy, where different cuisine kind of got mixed together again. A bit of North Italian, Austrian, Bohemian, and the Hungarian. That made it a nice flavor. Our kings married ladies from different regions of Europe. They brought their own spices, their own herbs. That kind of pimped up our cuisine as well. And this is how it developed. And the great market hall, I can show my guests everything about Hungarian spices, the main ingredients when we cook. Hungarian sausage, of course, but as coming from Spain, you know how important sausage is.
Oh yeah.
Sausage, salami, and all the drinks. I mean, Hungary is a wine country. We have 22 wine regions, 400 wineries. We have wonderful wine. Besides the internationally well-known grapes, we have also grapes which are special for Hungary because they don't grow anywhere else. And all these kind of things I can point out, and I spend quite a lot of time in the market. So just to show around, okay, what things are and where they come from. And then we already have some tastings at the market. And then we go to different locations. Well, actually the food tour is eating and a bit of walking. eating and a bit of walking, and eating, drinking, and at the end of the tour, everybody is satisfied, like, you know, no one stays hungry. And people learn about history, culture, and traditions as well.
So, I mean, sounds exactly like, you know, how I want to spend every single day of my life. But, you know, I just think it's wonderful because, you know, I've seen your videos and your posts, so I know that you went to the market. But, you know, for anyone traveling, I really wanted to talk about this because I think a lot of people don't realize how much you can learn just from being in a market. And I know a lot of people are not used to even this scene, right? Because I think particularly in the West and certainly in Western Europe, we're almost now too used to just going to one supermarket and buying everything there. And some people have never actually walked into a traditional market. They don't even know what it's like to have crates of vegetables and fruit and all sorts of things hanging around. So the fact that you're kind of giving them a crash course into this is everyday life culture.
Mm-hmm.
It must enrich their lives, not just for the sake of learning Hungary, but just, you know, I can't imagine when they go back home, if they've had an experience like that, you can't go back to just, you know, buy things from the same shop or whatever. It just opens up your mind to a whole different world. And like you said, I think that's so important because we are losing so much of our heritage that way. Which is a shame. You know, it's an absolute shame. I'm so grateful that the town where I was brought up in Santander, we have a central market and it's still very much in use. And if not, we have, you know, the little sort of convenience stores, which are not really like what people think in the UK a convenience store is. But, you know, they have an actual mini butchers, mini cheese section, whatever. It's just not as big as a market would. So I think for someone like me, I'm aware of it. I'm aware of how it happens, but I see it here in the UK. Like it is, I just hoped all British people will just go to Hungary and do this with you. Cause
Me too.
well, yeah, but you know, it is so sad here sometimes. Like I don't know a place that is not inside a supermarket where I can buy fresh fish in this city, which is by the sea, for example, which is just mind blowing to me. And as much as people think there is not a cooking tradition in the UK, there is. Maybe it's not as elaborate as in Spain or Hungary, but there is a cooking tradition. But most people just think it's all fish and chips. So, you know, all of those traditional meals that grandparents would have taught people, they just get lost. And it's a real shame because when we lose those things that don't have a, like a physical monument where you can go and remind yourself, once we lose them, we can't get them back.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, for you to be doing this, you're literally doing people a service for life, not just from the point of view of enriching their culture, but of making them appreciate what they could be doing at their own homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is something that I think we don't talk always about it when we travel. We always say, oh, traveling is a beautiful experience, blah, blah, blah. But here is a tangible thing that you take back. You've learned something in a completely foreign country, and then you may be, I don't know, in Guatemala, and then you'll think, you know what? I'm gonna try and apply some of that to my own life, which I think is wonderful. Like, do you get people that may have done tours or classes with you then telling you, oh, by the way, like, do they come back with stories like that? Like, I've rediscovered things. Like, could you share some of those maybe that could be interesting?
Yeah, they do. They actually do. Sometimes people who were on a food tour with me, they come back to me and say, okay, you know what? My friend's mom is Hungarian heritage, and we would like to cook all together, cook something Hungarian. And this is something where I just go like, oh, she wants to refresh her memories as well. And it's a wonderful experience for everybody else who cooks with her. Also, that was very sweet. I had this gentleman, it was a family from Canada, and they had a chimney cake. And then a few weeks after his visit, he just drops me a note and says, hi, Nelly, guess what? I said, I don't know.
Okay.
I said, I just ordered my pikes for the chimney cake online, and they're going to get delivered next week. Could you send me the recipe for the chimney cake, please?
Wow.
And this is, you see, this is not something what you just do in your kitchen.
No.
For that, but he had a cottage, and he had this kind of grill where you can put something in which keeps rotating. He just needed the pipes and the recipe, and he did that. And he sent me pictures, and he said they love it. And I was like, yeah, nice.
That's amazing. Like, I mean, I bet you were not expecting that in a million years. Like, because, I love chimney cakes. I think they're amazing. The first time I had one was actually fairly recent. I had one when I was in Poland for the first time in Krakow. And then I started doing some research and realized it was actually very common amongst many other countries in Central Europe. So when I was in Prague recently as well, of course, I had chimney cake. Because why wouldn't you? It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful concept. But yeah, I mean, it's not something that you can just do at home. Like, you need a special,
Equipment, yeah.
equipment for that. So the fact that he went out of his way is like, next thing you'll be hearing is he's set up his own chimney cake business in Canada. And, that would be completely mind blowing. But this is exactly the type of experiences that to me, when I hear something like that happening, I'm like, yeah, I did my good act of the day. I can go home and sleep and everything will be fine. Because that's a person who has not even changed. I don't know what the word is. They've
somehow.
Yeah, they've grown. They've blossomed into something else that is beautiful. And I think particularly food has this power.
Mm-hmm.
Many things have this power, but food is special because of that. And it's wonderful. It really is. Now, I want to ask a very controversial question.
Okay.
It's not really controversial. It's a foodie question.
Yeah.
But, when I think particularly, when we are not just people who deal with food, but we like food and whatnot, we obviously like our traditional food, right? Like, I love Spanish food, and every time I go home, the first thing I do is like, just everything. But if you had to pick a favorite dish or cuisine outside of Hungarian food, would you be able to pick one?
This is a very difficult question for me. Excuse me, my throat is a bit scratchy. I love to eat. It's a mean question.
I know.
What I eat, it depends on my mood, kind of thing. Oh, I feel like Mexican today, or I feel like Wiener Schnitzel today, or I feel like Kaiserschmarrn, or I feel like Thai food or Indian food. Um, I can't really pick. I love to cook very diverse when I cook here at home. And I mentioned that I lived in 7 different countries. And of course, I missed Hungarian cuisine a lot. So at least twice a week I cooked Hungarian, but the rest was international again. And I still do it. I just had um, fajita con pollo again, or a quesadilla, because I just love it. But I do love to cook Thai curry. I love to cook a chicken vindaloo. So difficult. I can't really answer it like this. I love.
I know. I know it's a very hard question to ask. You know, the reason why I'm asking is because when I came to the UK, I mean, things have changed a lot now. But when I first came to the UK in 2009, we were in the middle of the recession. So a lot of products that are now easily available, they weren't so easy to find here. So I could cook a few things like I would back home, but it wasn't so easy. And something really strange happened to me, and I still can't explain it. But my comfort food that replaced Spanish food became actually Thai food.
Mm.
And I don't know if it's because, you know, the flavors or the way of cooking it is completely different. You know, they couldn't be farther, farther apart. But there is something very like fulfilling about Thai food, if that makes sense. That sort of made me, it was the feeling, you know, it gave me the same feeling than having, say, a Spanish omelette. Because you eat it and you feel like, yeah, I've ate well and I'm happy now. And I sort of connected in that same way with Thai food. And it's interesting because, you know, I love Japanese food, I love Mexican food, like you, I like food from everywhere. But I notice now, if I can't get Spanish food and I'm feeling like, oh, today was a bit rubbish, the first thing, it's like an earworm that creeps on me, just goes like, order a Thai curry. And it's now something like that for me. So whenever I meet someone who has this same, you know, love for food, I wonder, did they experience something like this, or having that variety is, I think having that variety is important for us as well, because it's become part of us, I think. I cook quite internationally at home as well. Like obviously in the UK you have almost every culture under the sun, which is a huge privilege, which, you know, it's something we should appreciate a lot more. But it is something really, really interesting, because then I go home to Spain and sometimes I find myself missing it. The Spanish people like very much, you know, cuisine, Spanish food is the best food in the world and that's it. So it is an interesting thing. And I completely understand that you can't just pick, because, you know, it was an unfair question. It was very mean. So that's for me. But perhaps you can tell us some of your favorite dishes to cook at home.
Okay, but back to your Thai food, I agree with that. Actually, it's maybe because the combination of the spices and the herbs is so harmonic that it just completely satisfies you. I spent a few months in Thailand, in Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai, and I did cooking courses there as well, but mainly I was just eating well. And that's true. It gives you a kind of a comfort feeling. And I'm similar, for example, with Vietnamese food like the po. You see, on a foggy winter day, a warm po is just amazing. Yeah, so I can absolutely relate to that. Yeah, and sorry, I just missed your question because I was talking about.
That's absolutely fine. I mean, this makes sense, and I appreciate the fact that you can also see where I may be coming from. So this is awesome. It doesn't mean that I'm crazy. That there is
No, no, no.
there is logic to this madness. But yeah,
Both of us.
could you tell us some of perhaps your favorite dishes to recreate at home, whether Hungarian or not? So then maybe people who may be at home thinking right now, like, "Ooh, what am I going to have for dinner?" Okay, maybe not right now, because they may not have the ingredients, but something that may inspire them to, you know, try something different.
Okay, well, in the winter, I cook a lot of vegetable pottages. And this is something very, very typical in Hungary. On the other hand, you don't get it in restaurants because um, it's since it's not well known anywhere else, it would be too complicated to explain it to people. That's why they don't put it on the menu. But a vegetable pottage is, for example, a potato pottage, a pea pottage, a bean pottage, and so on, squash pottage. It's actually, that's the main dish. We cook the veggies with different spices and herbs. And for example, the potato pottage, I just cooked a few days ago. I posted it on Instagram as well. Oh yeah, and the other thing why they don't put it on the menu, because the presentation is not as wonderful as you could think about. And so that, for example, this potato pottage I just cooked after my grandma's recipe, it contains onions, caraway seeds, and then you cook the onions in a mix of water and milk. And when the potatoes are cooked, then you kind of thicken it with sour cream and a tiny bit of, you don't need a lot of flour because the potato has a lot of starch. And then you thicken it with it and you add a splash of vinegar. So it's a kind of a bit soury, and that's the main dish. And the side dish is the meat or something meatless. You can make a scrambled egg with that, or a veggie patty. But I made meatballs with a mixture of minced pork and beef with a lot of garlic, of course, onion, and that's for example a perfect comfort food in the winter for us. And you can make it today. You had this. Next day you are gonna have it with green beans, and then again the spices and the herbs are completely different. Yeah, and then you make it with peas, and there you have garlic in it, parsley, paprika powder, and so on. So every pottage, it's called pottage, but every pottage tastes completely different. And it's a fast dish, an easy dish, and nice because you have your veggies, you have your flavors. So that's why
It reminds me.
in the winter.
It reminds me very much of what in Spain we call puré, which is just pure vegetable soup. So you literally make like a pottage, and it depends where you are, but some people roast it, some people boil it, and then they just, like blitz it or whatever, and then you have this sort of like creamy texture. And it's exactly the same thing. Like, it requires minimal preparation, right? All you really need to know is what vegetables you're going to use and what flavor you're throwing into it. And it's, like you said, it's a piece of warmth that just goes into your heart, and it gives you all of those vitamins that obviously, because it's the winter, you could be missing out because you're not going outside or whatever, which is wonderful. But like, when you said the whole thing about the presentation, yeah, I can see why it may not seem so appealing, right?
Some home
Yeah.
is you just can't. I mean, they taste amazing, but when you put it in front of someone who never heard about it, never tried it, he will probably look at it and say, "Oh, what's that?" I mean, this is not a puree because you still have the chunks of the vegetable. It's like, it's a bit, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the visual aesthetic is definitely yeah. But that's an important thing as well, right? Because in Spain we normally say that you eat with your eyes, because if you're not, someone who may have been experienced a lot of different cultures and cuisines, the first thing that you notice about food is the smell and the look of it. And if something looks funny, then you're not necessarily going to want to eat it. So
Absolutely.
it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, true.
Excellent. So we have Hungarian potash of whatever vegetables. And what would you say for a dessert? What would be the best dessert that we could try at home?
Okay. Oh God, we have so many desserts. Oh my God, where should I start? Of course, we have cakes. We layer cakes like crazy. We have, I don't know how many different cakes. We have a tradition as well for sugar bakers. Every year there's a competition, and every sugar baker has to create something. I mean, we have tons of traditional cakes. Of course, they are very nice, but they have to create something new, something what wasn't here yet. And then a jury decides which one is the winner from the whole country, and this bakery and this cake can carry the name of Cake of the Year of Hungary for a whole year. So this is a privilege. And so that's cakes. We have pies. We actually, well, I do have a sweet tooth, and most of Hungarians as well, but we have Pancakes. Pancakes, it's different to American pancakes. It's a bit different to French crepe. It's smaller, but it's thin as well. You might even find it in Austria and Hungary. And so they are about this size and thin and kind of really elastic. And we have different fillings for that. So we fill it, for example, with sweet cottage cheese. We fill it with cocoa powder, with cinnamon. We fill it with ground nuts. Put a dark chocolate sauce on it with some rum. And oh, that's very nice. We have cottage cheese dumplings. We have plum dumplings. We have apricot dumplings. We have Kaiserschmarrn. It's from the Austrian-Hungarian Empire time. I don't know. I can't really translate it. It's something with well, it's something very nice as well. So if someone wants to figure it out, just you should let me know. I'll cook it with him or her. And we have a lot. So difficult to pick, especially, you see, I grew up the way that we, for lunch, our main eating was in my family lunchtime. And it used to be like this before. Now it's a bit, now it's switching a bit or changing a bit. But it was like, we always had a starter that was always a warm soup, either a clear soup or something, well, heavier. We had a main dish, and then we either had dessert or fruits. And that's why for me, a lunch is starter, main dish, and dessert. Although sometimes I just think, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't eat dessert anymore. But it's just, we love it. So even if it's tiny, that's why, for example, that's why I love Asian food, for example.
Yes.
Because you get so many different flavors on one table. So not a big dish of something, the same flavor, but a lot of different little things, and you can eat and try. And if we have 3 courses, we have smaller portions, of course, as well. But I like that. I like that. And with sweets as well, me personally, I do love a big slice of cake as well, but I prefer if there are smaller pieces and 3, 4 different things on one plate, because then I have different flavors. I like.
No, I completely relate to that. See, in Spain, it was very much like that. When I was little, we would have first and second dish, and it depend, depending on the time of the year, you would have maybe some cut of meat with some vegetables or with a little bit of salad, and then soup or something like that. So yes, it was a very similar approach. And we have something similar to what you're referring, but it's not small at all. And you can only find it in traditional restaurants, and we call it a pajamas.
Pajama.
So yes,
Oh.
I don't know why, but if you ask them to give you the pajamas, essentially what they do is they bring you a slice or a portion of every single dessert on the menu, plus the special. And I mean, like a cartload. And it's huge. Like normally they recommend it, for sharing or something like that. And in fact, I remember very clearly, my dad has a very sweet tooth, right? If my dad could eat just cake and that was the rest of his life, he would be a happy man. And sometimes when we went to restaurants to celebrate something special or whatever, because he had some stomach issues or whatever, he couldn't eat a lot of the things on the menu, but somehow he was always good for cake.
Yeah.
So
that all, yeah, has place.
So sometimes what he would do, he would just order the pajamas, because that would almost be a meal on its own right. Because, if maybe it has a pie, then it's almost like you're having a savory pie, but with, I don't know, strawberries or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember clearly a few times going and him asking a pajamas and the waiter being like, no, sir, I cannot bring you that. That's for like a couple or 3 people. Because, it's a lot of food and they didn't expect that. But yes, the small portions, the many things, sure, the small portions, I don't know about that. I may be a bit spoiled by my Spanish inheritance, but it is, like you said, we have something in us when you have a sweet tooth that you just kind of want to try everything. And having that sort of, it's nice having a nice slice of chocolate cake or whatever, but if you can have a little bit of lemon cake and a little bit of carrot cake and a little bit of chocolate cake, then it's much better, even though it's not as big, but it is more dynamic. I think it fills us with more joy,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
So I completely get that. No, that's excellent. Well, now guys, you want to try and replicate some nice Hungarian food in your house, you have to try potages, and you need to try all of the cakes, essentially, and dumplings. That I think I've tried Hungarian dumplings a few times, and they are actually very, very tasty. So, that's a recommendation. And I am becoming very conscious of the time and the fact that we need to start moving on. So I think really the last thing that I would really want you to do, if you wouldn't mind, is knowing all of these experiences that you deliver, all of these things that you've seen people go through just through food. What is something that you think, if someone has never had like a cooking experience like this or a food tour or something like that, what is the best advice that you could give them to sort of give it a go? Like, what's the best scenario? What's the best way of opening up to doing something like this?
Well, join me.
Of course.
I mean, it's actually, if someone travels, they need to eat. And if they are here, I mean, of course, every country offers, meanwhile, all different, these fast food chains or all kinds of international food. But if you want to eat like a local, you want to really try local dishes and know about how we eat, what we eat, how we eat it, what we combine with, then a food tour is a fantastic way to get introduced to Hungarian cuisine and all the rest, history, culture, traditions. So I think most of my food tours take 3 hours, and it's not a long time, but it's a perfect way to get to know my nation's cuisine.
Yeah, and I think particularly for people who travel and maybe a bit scared of not eating like at home, that's a nice way of introducing. Instead of diving into a restaurant and chancing it, go to the store, see the food, see what it comes from, see what it means, see what it tastes like, and then Nelly can take you to a very nice restaurant and you can fill yourself to your heart's content, because that's what we all want at the end of the day, isn't it?
And I do give my guests also, after the food tour, when they're here for a few days, I do give them recommendations if they want. I even make them for them reservations if they know, oh, we want to go to a traditional Hungarian restaurant, or we want to go to a fusion Hungarian restaurant. So everything is in it.
Exactly. Well, there you go, guys. All you need now is some plane tickets or train tickets or whatever way you travel. But on that note, and just because I always like to hone this in, honestly, genuinely consider what Nelly has said, because if you are starting to become really aware of, the state that the travel industry is developing or the environment and how sometimes things cannot be sustainable, eating like a local is actually one of the best ways of promoting that local community and ensuring that local community is going to be there for you next time, for other people next time, because it's those local businesses who suffer most when tourism isn't around. So if you really want to contribute, then, and you want to be happy and hungry, or rather not hungry, then a food tour and a food cuisine type of experience is the best way to go. You'll be, well, full, which is great, and you would have learned a lot of stuff, and you would be having a huge impact into those local communities. So, this is definitely the way forward.
Thank you for saying that. I agree. I think supporting local businesses is very important. Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm.
It's definitely, I always said it. This is how we transform ourselves from being tourists to being travelers. And when you're a traveler and you accept that the world is like an open canvas and you can learn so much from everyone, you also need to give a little bit back. And this is one of the best ways of giving back. Actually try to act like a local, right? So take the very famous saying as of when in Rome, do as the Romans do, but apply it to Hungary, to Budapest, or anywhere else that you go. And that would be honestly the best way you will experience, well, anywhere in the world. And
thank you.
That's it. That's all right. Well, we are unfortunately now coming to the end, even though I could carry on talking about food and stuff for ages. But you know, it's dinner time in the UK, and I'm so hungry right now.
Oh, okay.
All I can think about is like, oh my God, I don't have enough food in the house. I want to eat everything. So, you know, before I get hungry, I will do ourselves a favor and say farewell and thank you everyone so much to all of the people who have actually joined the chat, which have been people from both our accounts, new faces, some of our colleagues who are also tour guides and travel experts as well. So thank you so much for that. And honestly, Nelly, thank you so much for this, because to me, this has just been like the best moment of the day for sure, and of the week. And I am sure that a lot of people have learned a lot today because of what you've taught them. And honestly, I'm just so thrilled for all of your achievements and everything that's coming your way. I cannot think of a better way of celebrating you and saying thank you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for your kindness and for inviting me. I really enjoyed this conversation. It was fun, and hope to welcome you in Budapest soon.
Very soon, don't worry. Very, very soon.
Everybody who joined us, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. And thank you again. Have a lovely evening and see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.